God will make a body to come to earth in. Sherry, it's time you knew what is happening. Go read Phoenix by Summer Rain, God commanded in January of 2008. Oh? Why? God smiled, but made no reply to my inquiry. I did not push the matter further, for I knew by his silence that he would not answer. I conducted an internet search and I was happy to find an author by the name of Mary Summer Rain who had written the book, Phoenix Rising. I went to the public library and was delighted to find it available. I checked it out and read it as soon as I got home. The book was about the author's tutelage in the 1980s by an elderly American Indian woman who was, among many things, a prophetic seer. The seer, No Eyes, gave many predictions of humanity's future, specifically, what would befall the United States. No Eyes predicted many changes, such as nuclear accidents and meltdowns, earthquakes and sinkholes in places never seen before, unusual storms, freak accidents, global breakdown of banks and governments, a deadly epidemic outbreak, foreign soldiers on American soil and disclosure of UFOs leading to civic unrest and loss of trust in religious leaders. No Eyes explained that these things were to happen because the Earth Mother was cleansing herself in preparation for a new age of peace she called, the Phoenix Days. Could it be true? I thought to myself, why would God tell me to read this book if it were not? I do not know if I could believe No Eyes' stories of destruction and horror. I quickly read more books by Mary Summer Rain. Partway through reading one of her titles of which I no longer remember, God's voice told me there was something special at the end of the story of which I needed to know. In the last chapters, No Eyes prophesied that God the Father would literally walk on the earth alongside mankind during the Phoenix Days. I was astonished by what I had just read. I was torn between the prophecies in Summer Rain's book versus what I believed to be the reality of day-to-day life. My mind flip-flopped between belief and disbelief for many weeks. In the spring of that year, I concluded a visit with God in the spirit world and was preparing to leave when he handed me a white envelope the size of a greeting card. I opened it up and saw a faceless card inside. I pulled the card out, opened it up and pop-up letters sprang out reading, "Surprise! I'm coming." I fell to my knees, for in that moment, I understood God was coming to earth just as No Eyes had predicted. A long-forgotten Bible verse, "No one knows the day or the hour," entered my mind and I knew it to be true. There was very little I could say to God at that moment, for I was in such complete and utter shock. For many months, I did not speak with God about this subject because I was not ready to ask him if No Eyes' terrifying prophecies were true. Even though God himself told me that he is coming to earth and I have read Summer Rain's books and have seen the pop-up card, I often fall into disbelief. Twice, I have seen one of No Eyes' predictions unfold on television and my blood ran cold. In late spring of 2008, Angelos, a personal angel guide of mine, called me to the spirit realm. I closed my eyes and found my spirit self in a lecture hall. God stood behind a podium on an amphitheater stage and before him were angels sitting in rows of semicircle stone benches. Angelos guided me to a bench only 3 rows away from the stage and we sat down. Angelos was at my right and the aisle was to my left. Soon after we sat, God began. I could not hear God well. It was as if there was cotton in my ears since his words were muffled and obscured. Even though I could not hear well, I could see. A hologram-like image of a baby boy appeared in the front of and to the right side of God's podium. The image of the baby was quite large and it floated a few feet above the floor so that all the angels in the theater could see. Slowly, the hologram morphed from a baby to a young boy, then a youth, and finally, into a grown man. The hologram of the man remained next to the podium for the remainder of the lecture. Although I could not understand his words, I could gather what was happening from the angels around me. "How will you grow a body from here? asked one angel from far above and behind me. How will it enter the earth world? Asked another angel. It did not take me long to understand that God was making a human male body in the spirit realm. The body had to first be grown from infancy to adulthood before God would use it to come to earth. I could sense the emotions of all the angels in the hall, and so many were baffled. Apparently, such a procedure went against known physics, and some angels were very curious as to how this could be done. God explained the process, but unfortunately the only word I understood God say was crack. Thankfully, an angel seated next to Angelos explained what was going on. The angel said that God would come to earth in a fully grown body and not be born like Jesus was. The process of moving a body created in the spirit realm directly into the physical realm would create a tearing of the air, and subsequently, a massive cracking sound. The angel said I would not know the science behind the process, but the sound was the result of the physics involved. I sat quietly next to Angelos to digest the news. I felt unnerved and nauseated. My mind had a difficult time accepting what I saw, and I wanted to get away from this place and run. I suddenly felt the urge to throw up, so I jolted up from the stone bench and ran up the aisle 2 steps at a time. Even though my back was to God, I intuitively knew He paused to look at me for a moment before He continued with His lecture. At the top of the hall, I was pleased to discover open archways to a fresh air balcony. I ran into the open air and breathed in deeply. At this time in my life, I had trouble with demons and lizard people, and they had attacked my spirit body. It became difficult for me to control my spirit body and perceive the spirit realm. My spirit body would sometimes misbehave, and it did so then. My body lifted off the floor and did somersaults in the air. This distressed me, and I would have none of it. It took all of my mind's focus to keep my body still with my feet firmly planted to the floor. My stomach started churning and I wanted to puke, but I forced myself not to. Why is God telling me all these things? Why am I getting sick all the time now? Why are you up here? Angelos asked from behind me. I'm gonna embarrass myself, I replied, referring to my spirit body that might do uncontrolled somersaults in the air at any moment. You're supposed to be there. You're supposed to witness this, Sherry. With some convincing, Angelos led me back to my seat. I learned nothing more because I was too focused on my sickly state to pay more attention to God's lecture.